All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural Tech Talk, a collaboration between Sage and Tazergy. Just as Tech Talks spread ideas in the form of short, powerful talks, the goal of Tech Talk is to have short, powerful talks about all things technology specific to senior living. But before we dive in, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Larry Schneider. In addition to being a Sage board member, I am a partner and senior living planner with Plunkett Racich Architects. We've got offices Milwaukee, Madison, Sarasota, and Austin. But the real brains behind this endeavor is Matt Haywood. Matt, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, Larry, I'd be happy to. In addition to being a husband and father to two great children, I'm the owner of Tazergy and founder. I approach life with a glass half full mentality, and actually that glass is getting fuller. I'm passionate about cultivating a culture in our company that fosters collaboration, problem solving, and a sense of community.
Thanks, Matt. Sage is thrilled to be a partner with Tazergy on this. What we hope will be a long and ongoing series. And if you're not familiar with Sage, we are a not-for-profit membership-based organization. Our multidisciplinary membership includes really any great mind who is committed to excellence and continuing improvement of the built environment for seniors. Our members also enjoy educational opportunities such as this one, networking, collaboration, conference discounts, and much more. You can learn more about us at sagefederation.org.
In Tazergy, we are a solution-focused team with a passion for and background in serving the senior living industry, from owners, operators, to developers and design teams. We have three pillars, if you will: consulting and design, implementations, and ITaaS, which is our play on IT as a service. We offer everything from design documentation to design build installations for select systems, such as audio video solutions, including zoned audio. And finally, we top all that off with support. Our team is built to provide ongoing day one system support for all low voltage systems.
That's terrific. Thanks, Matt. So over the course of the next several installments of Tech Talk, we'll walk you through project's tech journey, from the initial idea to the grand opening. We may even take some detours along the way to do deeper dives into specific components and concepts that you, our audience, tell us you want to learn more about. So get ready for what we hope to be an enlightening and wild ride. All session recordings will be available on the Sage website. So if you miss a session or want to revisit one, you will be able to view it online. So, but this first installment of Tech Talk, we thought we would be best to kick off things by talking about the state of the industry more, including current future technology, what's becoming obsolete, what's hot now, and even the next great thing. And if you have questions along the way, just click on the Q&A button in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, and we'll be sure to get to those at the end of the session. Our goal is to keep this about 30 minutes or less. So we're on the clock, Matt, but this is our first time doing this, so you'll never really know what'll happen.
We'll keep you guessing. Larry, enough housekeeping. Let's get this party started.
All right. So, boy, we're just coming out of a pandemic, Matt. Technology within senior living industry has never been more accessible and necessary for providers. Between facility management of trying to get a handle on lowering utility costs and increasing clean air and even controlling lighting, to staffing technologies and AI and robotics and smart home technology, it's just blossoming. And I think the COVID pandemic kind of helped that in many ways. All of this technology, though, has been around for a long time. But it was out of reach for many due to cost and just not integration. What's changed to fuel this? And maybe I stole your thunder a little bit, but take us back through the industry and how the types of changes you've seen.
Sure. No, you didn't steal any thunder for certain. I think you hit the nail on the head that COVID certainly validated the need for embracing technology, if you will. and really committing to it all in. And I'd say where we came from was fairly simple, flat, maybe even siloed technologies that could be installed by a GC and even laid out by the typical design team. You know, your AEC team was pretty much able to capture everything that was needed. It was pretty much a phone line, you know, and you had your phone system. I think that would have defined the pinnacle of technology in buildings back then. You know, change today, you know, you go from single pair to multi-pair. Data now needs to be everywhere, right? Phone lines are fading away rapidly. We've found even carriers won't bring in traditional plain old telephone service to projects any longer. So those facilities are rapidly changing the way that fire alarm systems are monitored. You know, even that was a bit of a beast to embrace change, if you will. You know, it's just pretty much traditional analog monitoring, and that's just set it and forget it. You know, now it's cellular monitoring on those panels, and some of them are IP monitored. So, anyways, that was definitely the then, and the now is, you know, it requires a team, it requires a collaboration. You know, the technologies that are out there are pretty vast, and that just presents some challenge when approaching a new project for design, right?
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So, you know, you started touching on it, but how would you characterize the current state of technology as it exists today?
Well, the current state would certainly be a whole lot more complex. I would say it's also ripe for advancement within the industry if you're talking about senior living, just because the technology stands in our purview, anyways. My perspective is that technology should help a community and operator achieve operational efficiency. It should be about an outcome. The technology shouldn't exist on its own. So that just requires a pairing. So when you start talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning and how to automate these things, it really, we as a design team need a lot more from the owners, the operators, the developers that we're working with. You know, we need to, it's almost like we need to even more be a leech on them, you know, and just we need a knowledge transfer. We need to understand what problems they want to solve, because as a design team, we can't really just spec a technology. You know, Tazergy can't just pick a technology off the shelf, you know, send over a set of plans and specs and expect that a GC is going to bid it out, program it correctly, turn it over, and that operator then is going to understand how to run it. You know, I think that we've all witnessed that. Sure. Even from the landscape, you know, when you think about the CSI divisions and specifications, right? The original was what, 16 divisions, right? It had made no provision for low voltage. They bolted on a division 17 to kind of create a placeholder for it in projects at the time. And now today, low voltage has 2 divisions, 27 and 28. I don't know if and the number of divisions has gone up significantly. And if you really dive into the subdivisions within there in the categories, you'll find they're fairly extensive, and they lay out at least a good framework for capturing the documentation needed for a prospective project. So I definitely think, just if you look at CSI, that kind of gives you a then and now. It's like, oh, right, we need to be intentional about this. We need to plan for this, you know, early on in the project. And anyways, that's.
Yeah, and that's terrific. And it really has become such a crucial component earlier on than ever before too, instead of just kind of this placeholder. And sometimes in non-construction costs, it's just a or soft
Yeah.
costs, and it's really kind of weaved its way into integration into the building so importantly. But as we look at systems today and senior living, senior living industry, what's becoming obsolete?
Well, what I say or find myself saying all the time is that change is the only constant, and we can't fight that change. And technology, I think, it epitomizes, embodies, embraces that, and there's some things it might even accelerate it exponentially. Um, so, the what is changed, or what do we need to do to embrace that change? Um, from my perspective, we need to be collaborative. In order to solve the problem, you as an architect, when an operator or developer comes to you and says, "Hey, I've got this project," you know, they don't just say, "Hey, I need a senior living community." It really doesn't matter whether it's single story, multi-story. It's I approximately think it's this size or whatever, and go. You know, it's it's tough. You can't do that for them, right? Technology is the same way. We need to um, be more collaborative in our approach to capture the operational intent needed for that community. One of the analogies that I look at, we're familiar with Chick-fil-A, and they've relied upon a drive-through for what, over 30 years. But the past few years have seen a massive change to that traditional model. It was basically, hey, put a vehicular drive lane, a little microphone, and maybe some of them tried to come up with two windows. And certainly, when we talk about COVID, Chick-fil-A had already been innovating their drive-through lane, right, prior to COVID. But then in COVID, they even leaned into it more. What did they do? They built out full-scale models. They leveraged technology, but it wasn't necessarily off-the-shelf technology. So they're using tablets. Obviously, they're using Wi-Fi. They're using point-of-sale systems, but they're also using real customers. They're using real vehicles. They're building out real spaces so that they can say, "Hey, what do we need to do to make this better?" And the better was we need to have less traffic. We need to be able to serve the customers faster. So, and does that hit on the answer? I don't know if I danced all around it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you'd mentioned how the phones are becoming less and less needed in facilities. I love the Chick-fil-A analogy because it relates to anybody adopting some streamlined technology to make their lives easier, and that can apply to any point of service on any senior living campus across the country and the world. So if we're not, we've seen the airline industry modify how they handle check-ins and seat assignments and
Right.
everything else. So all of that continues to change. But is there a particular focus of what's hot now and maybe more of a low-hanging fruit piece? Because I know there's always fear with technology, and that word comes out a lot. And obviously getting you involved earlier will help clients understand and manage that.
Absolutely. One thing I definitely think, one change that is certainly needed, and you addressed it, was the word fear. I think we need a change from viewing technology as a quantifiable item or system to be purchased and or bid out and installed, as more viewing it as a means to an end, right? A means to achieve an outcome, right? So if an operator wants to achieve better, more efficient care, as a design team, we need to look at that holistically, and again, not on our own as technologists either, right? Like, we need to collaborate to figure out where should charting occur. How do we leverage what technology is out there? And I would say that what earlier I mentioned, that I feel like the industry, the opportunity, the innovation that is out there in the products, and it certainly is presenting a lot of opportunity for operators, developers, and even us as design team to lean in and figure out what can we take advantage of in this AI, machine learning, and automation landscape to in a design phase, really, right? In a new project, how can we capture and harness some of that for an operator? That to me, I think is uh, is going to be a differentiator, if you will.
Sure.
You
I
know,
mean, every project's different, and every client's going to have their priorities, but are you seeing trends in the type of technology that are being brought in to senior living now more than earlier than say
uh,
later?
I mean, if you think about a couple examples, uh, two come to mind. Your nurse's office or care manager, wherever you were going to keep your charting. Remember, like tons of shelves for the binders where your medical records were going to be stored. You know, I I don't know many operators that are still simply charting on paper, and that change that was a long time coming. I mean, I think that for the length of time that you and I have been in the industry, there was a lot of talk about it's coming, but still a community kept getting built and it was like, hey, it's just easy. This is automatic for us. Yeah, give me shelves. I'll put binders on it. We're good. I know how to operate that. The other tech stuff is a little bit of a heavier lift. And now when
Right.
we go into communities that are, acquired, it's like they they dread having to go on to paper Mars, in a transitioning community from one to another. Um, so that's one example, and then the other is door hardware, mechanical locking. If you if you look at the hospitality industry, when you used to go to a hotel, it was you would expect to get a key, right? A mechanical key that wasn't far off. And then it started to get electronic cards. And in senior living, it still tends to be like an operator, or maybe as design teams, we tend to just default to the mechanical lock. We know how to create the keying schedule. You can send it off to the specifier. You don't need too much input from an operator on how they want to operate that, right? So in order to embrace access control, that that's a much more challenging landscape because as an architect, you can't just grab a door hardware consultant and have them put together a performance spec that says, power supply by others and electronic locking and, asterisk access control. The GC, you're going to get a mixed bag of goods when that community opens. I think you may have experienced that, and maybe others on this
Sure.
call may have as well, right?
Sure. Well, that's
So
terrific. I certainly appreciate that. I think it translates to the providers that are listening in as well, in that, when we have access control issues, it doesn't mean that a person has to be there. We can just control that access through either a fob or some other component that can allow guests to come in and out. And with
yeah,
proper control and security, that's all manageable, and that's a huge piece. In memory care facilities, we don't want to emphasize coming and going. We want to de-emphasize that. So this
right.
only leads to that. So again, using technology to use that is really valuable as we go through it. So you hit on a couple of great ones there, Matt.
I think the
So
other thing, as you talk about, memory care too, and just um, care, I think as I look to the future a bit, one of the questions that we tried to help ask and help get an operator to define is the biggest lift for any of us businesses and owners is labor, right? I mean, that's the thing that we need to figure out how to improve upon, you know, and I certainly think if we can measure or capture the the care or the activity of the care team, how much time are you spending with a resident? how much time, and marry that to what you had planned to in your pro forma. If you're staffing, 7 to 1 or whatever have you, if you can capture some real world data that says, oh, I know that I was planned for 7 to 1, but the reality is, every caregiver, every nurse is really only serving 3 residents. That's going to help an operator realign the cost of operating and balance the expense and help them become more efficient, so they can be more intentional and precise in their pricing. At least that's
Sure.
remember I said I'm a glasses half full kind of guy and getting fuller. Like, that's my utopia. And I'm like, I know we can get there.
Yeah. Well, change is tough. Change is difficult. And, the value of having, somebody like you on a project would be showing clients how that can improve and what others have done to solve this problem, because everybody's got unique issues, but there's certainly the ones that we've identified are pretty common. Certainly staffing is at a all-time high in difficulty, and
It's
we
simple.
need to
It's no
try
big
and
deal. I don't
maintain.
hear anybody complain about it at all, right?
Yeah, but we talk about the importance of just bringing down that third party agency staffing,
Yeah.
just getting employee morale and getting the culture to maintain. That's such a fragile piece today, and all of these pieces can help aid that. So that's terrific. But
Yeah.
when we also talk to clients, sometimes clients they're all in on technology. We want the next best thing, and there's leading edge technology, and then there's bleeding edge technology. And is there anything you can point to as the next greatest thing?
For sure. One, I also want to encourage everybody that to reduce the fear is we need to we need to draw on the fundamentals, right? The fundamentals of design. There's a process of capturing the goal of the project. What are you trying to accomplish? What is the outcome that you want for this project, this space, this expansion, right? Technology should apply the same rules of engagement. Oftentimes we tend to forget that because it's like, hey, I want to take advantage of the wicked cool thing. Can I put it in? Well, I can tell you from a design standpoint, yes, we can plan for some things inside the community. One, you already see it from the carriers. Copper is going away. They're all putting in fiber. When you see the construction trucks on the side of the road pulling conduit in, you ask them what they're putting in there. They're putting in fiber. They're not putting in more copper. They're not ripping up old copper and replacing it with newer copper, right? So fiber in and of itself has not met a speed limit, right? So we have not been able to surpass the speed capacity of fiber. So I'd say you have an outside plant doing that. Inside plant, we need to figure out how that plays into our operational model. And in senior living, that introduces some operational decisions. If we're going to put in fiber, how is a carrier going to run on top of that fiber is a question. You start getting into some of the weeds there. And I think the hot now piece, we've heard about robots. I think my caution on drawing on your fundamentals is if you go invest in a technology or something that's hot and you don't have a plan, a goal, what problem it is that you're trying to solve, what I find is that people more often than not are investing in something that they hope will solve a problem that they aren't really clear what they're trying to solve. So I certainly have talked with operators that have spent a significant penny on robots, and those may be sitting in a room, not really achieving operational efficiency in senior living. So the hot now is for certain the AI, and it is certainly accelerating the exponential factor of change. I also think that in this industry, sometimes we don't know where and how we are actually taking advantage of AI. So I think that an operator may not understand that some of the systems they use are already achieving some AI components. So for me, that's what I would look to as the future of the hot and now,
Okay.
like the Krispy Kreme hot now donut sign.
Right. Good. So we're getting towards the end of our time here, and I want to just, one of the questions that we touched on a little bit was, how do we overcome the fear of tech systems we invest in becoming obsolete and not being intimidated by it? I look at the design process can be kind of daunting early on, but we break it down into logical steps to try and understand the needs and define those with square footage, and we can relay some information early based on history and based on our knowledge and research of what that's going to look like. And I would imagine that the technology design process isn't far off from that. There's a goal seeking component to this that you help manage and understand how to pull that together.
Absolutely. I mean, to say that technology has to be used. It has to be used by the people that aren't sitting at the design table, right? Our caregivers aren't sitting at the design table giving input on how these systems are going to operate. But those are the people that are going to be using the tablets and the technology and the key cards and being inside the space. So that's it, and the operators just have to, like, your time, your perspective is extremely valuable to us as a design team. I know that it's difficult to push pause and spend 8 hours in a door hardware coordination meeting to talk about doors and electronic locking and getting that, but when we all work together and collaborate on the same call, the outcome is significantly more powerful. It's significantly more on point than if, Larry, you just hopped on the call and said, hey, where do you want electronic locking? And then you hang up with them and then call somebody like us. And then we start talking about wander management and locking and, alerting. And you're like, oh, we didn't talk on any of that stuff. So
Yeah. Well, that's terrific. We're running out of time, but thanks for sharing that great information, Matt. Now let's get the audience questions. If you have any questions for Matt, just click on the Q&A button upper left-hand corner and type it in. While the folks are typing those questions in, Matt, we spoke at the beginning of the session about the project's tech journey and many stops along the way from the initial idea to the project completion. Can you tell us about the first stop along the tech journey, which we'll discuss at the next Tech Talk on September 14th?
Larry, it's strategy. I tried very hard to not say that word. I was dancing all around it while we were talking. But how can we start without first knowing, defining, understanding what the strategy is? We need to define or formulate that strategy in order to achieve the vision for that future community or space. It's the key link between the desired destination, which is the vision, and the current present state.
Very good. We've got, we really want audience participation, and whether it's now or following this, we really want you to chime in on where you want this to go. If you've got any hot buttons that you would like to have us focus on in this series that we're going to do. We're nothing without you guys, and we're going to make it, if it's a hot topic, chances are to you, it's going to be a hot topic to someone else. So,
Heck, if you have a fear topic, sometimes that could be a hot topic.
Right.
So yeah, please feel free to share.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Matt. This has been great. I look forward to learning more about tech strategy in the next installment of Tech Talk. In the coming days, we will send today's registrants a link to sign up for the session, along with a link of today's recording in just a moment. You'll be prompted to complete a brief survey about today's session. Would really appreciate your completing the survey and sharing any particular topics you'd like us to really dive into throughout the series. So on behalf of Sage and Tazergy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me, Larry.